What's up, Bitcoin Radio? Welcome to WBTC, where Bitcoin lives. I'm your host, Joe Blackburn. Today, we're going to have a special guest. We have Mr. Dennis Lewis, who's going to be joining us. He's an author. He's really just, from what I know about him, and unfortunately, we don't have a long-standing relationship, but I've been kind of really intrigued with what this guy's been doing. He stands for a lot of the things that we talk about on a regular basis as a group and as even a podcast here now that we have Bitcoin Radio. But, I love when we can bring people on who have that objective opinion, who understand, business principles and what it's going to take to put crypto and blockchain into a space that really just gives us an opportunity to have credibility. We've been talking about this several times, and there are so many really credible projects, and there's so many great projects that are now, that coming to fruition from the 2017, 2016 era, and they're so overshadowed, unfortunately, by some of the just the amateurism and the basic, just bare minimum blockchain jobs and projects that we saw appear during that time frame. But that's not unusual. Even outside of blockchain, this happens in every new space. There's people who take advantage of it, try their hand, and not every person has bad intentions. If their business fails, and I try to remind people, I'm not necessarily saying we should be patient with everybody, but we've got to have some patience with this space. But at the same time, you can't not learn from your mistakes, right? We've got to start putting ourselves in a position to grow and then to become, worthy of this attention that the news is giving us. So, I think that's where the conversation that we're going to have today, and really with Dennis, he's an author, as I noted, and we're going to get into a little bit about his book. But he's also somebody who I think has a lot of experience in outside of just crypto. He's been doing these things for a long time. His newest book is called "Behold the Cryptopreneurs," and we're going to really touch base on maybe even some sensitive subjects to some of you. But nevertheless, he is a digital storyteller and a blockchain marketing specialist. And I'm going to bring him on now. Dennis, get ready. What's going on, Dennis? Welcome to the show,
Hey,
man.
Joe. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoy it. Thanks a lot.
Hopefully I represented you well in that introduction, but I'm glad to have you here. And, for someone who I'm still learning to podcast myself, I guess you could say it's still a learning process for even me here, even though I've been doing videos for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll probably screw up somewhere along the line here anyway. So that's good.
No, we're going to have some fun today. Obviously, you have some very strong opinions, and you've been around the block in more than one sense, no pun intended. And, you've had the ability to really, look at this market from a different perspective from somebody who has had some success and has a tremendous amount of experience in doing other things too. But let's go ahead and just start with, the basics, man. Like, who are you? Where are you from? How'd you get into blockchain?
So, thanks first of all, the reality is that I got into this space because a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, we're doing this project. We're going to do an ICO, and we don't know how to market anything. And can you come give us a hand? And that was kind of in, the early 2017. And I just jumped in with both feet, and, we raised a little bit of money. It was an okay project. And then people started calling. And since then, I've been involved in a lot of projects. I've seen them from the inside out. I've seen a lot of projects grow huge communities. I've helped them grow huge communities, and I've seen a lot of the messy stuff that happens in the behind the curtains. And it just gets a bit frustrating because time and again, I see that what causes the projects to fail isn't, sure, there's scammers out there, but it's not that. It's a lack of business common sense. It's a lack of knowing how to build a sustainable business. It's fundamentals that are missing. And, I think that we can't pretend to have a long-term sustainable industry unless we're going to address these problems and actually build businesses that solve problems for real people.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's something that here on Bitcoin Radio, we have also, addressed on several occasions. But, you have a different perspective coming in your bio, and things that I've been able to learn from you. Obviously, I don't know the details, Dennis, but you've led many startup companies in the past, and that's both blockchain and outside of blockchain. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I come from I've worked with tech companies, I've worked with fashion companies, I've worked with all sorts of businesses. We can tell some more stories. I got on Good Morning America once, and had a fight with some famous TV show hosts. So there's lots of old battle stories out there.
That's fun.
Yeah, I got. We can talk about the time Bill O'Reilly trashed crushed me once on live TV.
No
That was fun.
kidding. No, I want
Yeah,
to hear this. Let me hear it.
yeah. We'll save that for the end. That way people
Okay,
will
fair
stick
enough.
around. Okay.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Dennis, being that you've seen the success and even the failures of several different, I guess you'd say niche, startup types. Would you say, blockchain is so different from the rest of the world in the startup sense?
Well, every new industry, and you were saying it earlier, every new industry has its kind of Wild West moments. We definitely had them on a big scale, right? I mean,
Sure.
2017, ICOs raised more money than venture capital. But where are all those projects now? How many of them are still, how many promises were delivered on? And that's what I talk a lot about is that, it's not about the money, it's about delivering the promises. And it's also not about the tech. I mean, the tech is great. And, sure, it's a technology industry. But if the technology isn't being used for anything useful that makes people's lives better, then we're just running in circles. And that's, I think, where we really need to focus.
Yeah, well said. And we're gonna have a lot of agreeable moments here, and I like to play a little bit objective as well. And even though 2017 can be looked back on and say, look at all these mistakes, look at all these bad projects. Yeah, I've always taken this stance, and I want to remind people it wasn't all really that bad, because what we saw Ethereum go from $6 all the way up to like 1,300, right? So there was this inflated, view of what our crypto was worth from the beginning, and there were so many people who were just making, investing in. I mean, and this is coming from people who at one point probably didn't have $10,000 at all to invest, let alone put $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 into a project randomly just because their friends are doing it. And this is what I saw socially, internally. I saw people who made hundreds and thousands, if not millions of dollars in early 2017, mid 2017, on just that initial run from Ethereum going from 6 to I think it went to like 240 at one point, and that's when everybody all of a sudden had money, and your Ethereum was worth a lot of money. And now you can invest in these projects with money that was kind of fake or never realized, right? So I like to remind people personally, like, hey, look, yes, it was crazy. It was nuts. But a lot of this money, it was relative to what we, of course, the numbers were there, but nobody was really realizing this except maybe some of these projects who were smart enough to cash out, and not all of them were.
That I've seen that from the inside as well. I've seen, one of the things I talk a lot about is that you can kill, one of the fastest way to kill a good project, is to give it too much money.
Oh, very true. Yes.
I've personally witnessed projects crash and burn because partners get into huge fights between themselves because they suddenly feel like they're Warren Buffett, and now they've got all this money and they need to invest and play the markets with it and they crash and burn because that's not their job. And there's so many examples out there that we can go through of just lack of accounting skills, lack of how to build a partnership agreement so that these things don't happen, fundamental things that, how to keep your nose clean and keep out of trouble. So many of these problems that I've seen, firsthand.
Absolutely. No, Dennis, great points on that. You got your new book out, and of course, I do want to hear more about that, and we will hear shortly. But one of the key points that you're on record saying is, like, as scammers go, they're the second biggest problem in crypto right now. What is the first? Like, in this, I don't even see it. Like, I was looking for this. What is your first pick for the biggest problem in crypto?
Yeah, the biggest problem for me are projects that are well intentioned and they can't deliver because they're just not capable of delivering. They don't have the business skills. They don't have the people skills. They don't have the marketing skills. They don't have the sales skills. They don't know how to build a structure that can survive. And I think that's even bigger a problem than scammers.
Absolutely. No. And we saw that firsthand. Anybody who actually disagrees with you would be, that's one of those almost provable things. There's like, it's measurable in that sense. Why did these fail? Boom. There was no experience. People doing a CEO's job for the first time. People learning to be a CMO or a CTO CTOs maybe a little bit differently, but you get the point. You're spot on there. But let's move over to what you say is the second, and scammers. And are they? Do you really think that they are the second biggest problem? I mean, or is that just more so of leaving it open because there's something in front of it?
Well, who knows exactly how big it is, but I've seen enough people. I mean, we all know that there are
Sure.
people that have run projects and then they've rushed out to buy a Ferrari or a Lambo, or
Absolutely.
they've ended up on a beach somewhere. I mean, that happens.
Of course.
It is a reality. Um, you know, I think there's solutions for eliminating that problem. I actually talk about them in the book, and we can get into that. But they're bad people everywhere. I mean, that's just part of life. So I don't think that's unique to this industry. I think it was a special moment as well, where there was a lot of liquidity and a lot of a lot of what you're saying, a lot of easy money that came quickly and went away just about as quickly.
Absolutely. And there were, I mean, there were people who did capitalize off that moment. And you're right. There are the scammers, they were there. And, whether their intentions were good or bad, the point is people lost money and people were, really excited. But, without risk, there is no investment. Every investment does have the risk. And I look at where the space is headed and what I personally think, where I've watched the successes happen, and that is in the ease of use for people, and we're still so far away from that. But you also have another side of really a question I'm going to ask you just based off of some of the information that's provided. Is what is crypto? What crypto can learn from Henry Ford and the likes of McDonald's? Like, what is it that's missing in comparison to what you just have noted on your site?
Well, I mean, look at them. Did McDonald's invent the hamburger? No.
Nope.
Did Henry Ford invent the car?
Nope.
No, he didn't. Both of them are classic examples of people, of organizations that invented business models. They invented structures. They invented, Henry Ford, the assembly line in series. He invented car dealerships. He invented, large scale factories so that, to get to the masses with automobiles. And I think it's a perfect example. These are the kinds of things that blockchain needs. We need
Absolutely.
to be, we need to quit staring at coin market cap all day long and start saying, how can we use this marvelous, amazing technology to make grandma's life better, to make people's lives better all around the world, to solve problems in healthcare, in voting, in so many different areas that we could be making the pie bigger instead of worrying about what price is the blueberry at.
For sure. And you're also someone who thinks maybe the crypto markets, as you just noted, cause a lot of the problems that we see. Well, can you go into a little bit of detail on your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not so much that I get some flack from my trader buddies because
Sure.
they say, hey, you're out harping on us all day long and bashing me. And it's not that. But if you look at the financial world system in general, and there's traders and there's speculators and there's markets that go up and they go down, and that's great. But that's not the focus. Okay. I mean, you still, the focus of the petroleum industry is to put gas in people's cars. The focus of, all these industries, commodities trading, it's because people want, they want products. They solve real problems in the real world. And the trading is an extra, and it helps keep things flowing, and it provides energy. But you can't just have that. So we need the other part. We need to say, hey, how do we make this an industry that actually works for people and actually makes things better? And by the way, that'll make us all a whole lot of money.
I'm sure.
How big will your portfolio be when instead of maybe, and if we say really high, 20 million crypto users in the world right now, there's 2 billion of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. What will your portfolio be worth then?
Well,
that's the question we should be asking.
And just to make this clear, I'm overwhelmingly agree with you on that. And of course, I know you're not here to necessarily debate that or say that there's not space for either, right? But I will say on an objective and maybe even a devil's advocate level, without trading, how do you get people to take the space even remotely serious? Because the traders come in, they do bring the money, they bring the liquidity, they allow a lot of the fundraising to happen because they're looking for potentially a profit, and the risk reward is enough to them. They invest hoping that something's going to happen. Obviously, we could talk probably for for 15 days in a row about, whether or not any altcoin truly has value right now. And although I do think there are some, I've yet to see the regulation allow things to happen a certain way for them to actually have true value, not just speculative or potential value. And that's primarily what we're dealing with, is speculative value that may or may not ever go anywhere with any coins based on hype. Now, I've been on record myself saying, if everybody just quit selling their damn Bitcoin, guess what? We wouldn't have any problems with the price going low. Just hold it. If we had a bunch of holders rather than a bunch of traders, we wouldn't be dealing with these issues. And I don't know why anybody's selling Bitcoin right now, but it's this fact that everybody knows somebody's going to sell it. So because people are greedy, and they can't wait to be greedy enough. They want to be greedy right now, can't be patiently greedy. But obviously that's just a joke. But Dennis, you bring up some great points, and I completely agree with them, as I said. But I still do have to give some credence here to the trader, and that is, without them, do we even have a blockchain space?
Sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to, I think there's room for everything. I think that the trading and speculating actually provides, energy. If you think of money as energy, then that motion in the market is good for everybody. But it's just a question of focus, and it's a question of purpose. The projects that we invest in through tokens need to have a better purpose. And we really need to be able to trust that the people leading those projects believe in their own purpose and are working hard to achieve that purpose. And I think if we do that, I think traders will be enormously happy.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page, Dennis. I agree with that. Of course, I was being a little objective there and just bringing up another side to this, because, of course, there are a lot of traders that, not only listen to the show, but are part of my Facebook group. And, they're just getting introduced to you, and I want them to be able to hear your full thoughts on that, because I think it's really, honestly, it's pretty interesting, the way that you've been able to shape this stuff. Now, Dennis, if we can even go back to a little bit about your book real quick, and I'd like to hit some topics on that and let you kind of explain what your book is about and why you wrote it, and maybe even I think you probably touched on a little bit of the influence on what brought you and the motivation that brought you to write it. But you do think that the blockchain space currently is at a crossroads. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that I think it's right now is the moment that we have to make this conscious decision and focus on what we're talking about, and give the projects that are actually working on solving problems, let them take advantage of this amazing fundraising ability that we have in the industry. I'm all for that. But we need to start measuring these projects seriously, like businesses that they are. And we got to get all the crap off the table. We got to quit worrying about, I'm going to buy this token because I believe that it's going to go to the moon. Well, man, that's not the, if that's what you're here for, well, more power to you, but that's not going to build the future where we have 2 billion users.
No, of course, well said. All right, so let's transition into a little bit about the book, and I think there's a good foundation on your mindset and what you think. So we probably addressed a lot of the things that encourage you to write this. But as noted in the beginning, Behold the Cryptopreneurs is your newest book. You are the author, and I guess that's been out for how long now? Or I guess it's not even out yet, is it?
Yeah, it is out. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon, both in paper and in Kindle version.
Awesome.
Yeah, the book is. I start off admitting openly the book was born out of frustration. It's born out of having seen everything I've seen and seeing how, I really think that we just need to learn. We need to teach the project founders to have a better vision of what they're doing. One of the things I talk about in the book is the Zuckerberg paradox. And I say that because I think that Mark Zuckerberg is probably the human alive who has most harmed progress, and not because of Facebook, because of the myth that he's created. He created the social network. He created this myth of this young, nerdy, CEO born in a college dorm room that is able to disrupt and innovate and build, the next amazing thing. And while it's true that he achieved a lot, and hats off to Mark Zuckerberg for the good parts of Facebook. Yep. I mean, there's the other part we could talk about for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think that myth is a real problem. We need experience. We need people with, in the space that, know how to craft a story, that know how to build a team, that know how to, put in place a system so that money doesn't disappear. I could tell you that I probably have 30 projects, that I could think of right now that I've been involved in. 25 probably didn't have an accounting system.
Sure.
And they already had raised significant amount of money.
That's
now
crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's stupid. It's like, and yeah, okay, we're all tech people. Well, what the hell? You've got to have, and most of them, then they, a year later, 18 months later, they're saying, where did all this money go?
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, where did you think it was going to go? You don't even write things down. You don't even have it. Yeah, but it's on the blockchain. Yeah, right. Like that's going to tell you, that's going to help you manage your business. That's just the history of the transactions. But where did the money go?
That's a great point too. And even me, I mean, I'm on that I guess that line where millennial starts. And although I don't necessarily consider myself a millennial because I didn't have a cell phone until I think I was a sophomore, junior in college. Never had one in high school. I used to borrow my mom's when I would go out to a football game or something like that, And then, I was lucky if she let me use it. And, my friends would be calling her phone. Is Joe there? Can I talk to Joe? I'm like, oh man, it's so embarrassing, right? But I don't consider myself as part of fully a millennial generation, although I did spend the majority of my early 20s, being exposed to the technology once it started existing, including Facebook. I was in Facebook within the first few months that it launched. And because of that, I learned very quickly that I could be lazier because the internet existed. And I didn't grow up with the same, ideas or at least the same thought process my parents did. And, where my dad, I would watch my parents every Sunday balance the checkbook. I haven't heard of somebody balance the checkbook in how long? Why? Because it's all right there. I can log onto my account. I can see everything. But I'm not really taking into account what I'm spending my money on. And there's really no accountability. It's just my bank account gets smaller, right? When I'm spending money, or it gets bigger if I got paid. So it doesn't surprise me. And I don't want to say I can relate to this because it's very irresponsible. If you're going to raise that money, you've got to be prepared for it. And ignorance is not an excuse. But I can at least relate to the fact that some of these people don't even know that they need to keep track. They're just like, yeah, it'll work itself out, because that's how we live in our checkbook life. We don't have one. We don't have to. We just check it on there on our bank account, right? So you make a really great point, and why having that business experience and going forward, what you should expect. And everybody I talk to that knows what they're talking about has a similar message as you, Dennis, and that is the team. What is the team? What's their experience? What have they done? Where are they going? Is anything they're saying even realistic, right? A great idea might raise money and might go up in token price, but that don't do anything except eventually run out of time, and it's going to die. So, great point. Sorry for my little rant, but I just love the way that you shape that. I think it's very relevant, especially to this tech age that we're in now. Now, with all what you just said right there, and going forward, what you're seeing from the space now, are you seeing these principles starting to rise to the top? Are you seeing, or are you still a little concerned? I know you said we're at crossroads, but
yeah, sure. We're working with some good projects. There are solid projects out there that are very, that have their ideas clear and know what they're doing. But I still see lots of people calling me and contacting me, and that's why we're so picky. And we don't work with most projects. It's just that, and it's not that they don't have decent ideas, but it's good ideas are a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? It just doesn't matter. It's not there. And what you were saying earlier, how many people these days know how to read a map?
Correct. I do, by the way. I was in the Army for 7 years. But yes.
Congratulations.
Just put that out there.
My son couldn't get to Starbucks without the GPS in his iPhone, right? Yep. Those are the kinds of skills that we're missing. So, hey, here's a shout out to any of those crypto geezers out there like me.
Hey, absolutely.
Still know how to do these things.
There you go. And I can appreciate that. And I'm a minimalist in a lot of different ways myself on some levels. But all right, and again, what you said, there's a lot of similarities into our personal messages, between the two of us. And I look right now as we move forward, I can say it like this. You can try as hard as you want. I can try as hard as I want to portray this message and to beat it into people's heads. But ultimately, it comes down to, are people actually changing the way that they do things on a investor level, on the basic micro investing that has $100, $200, and you got 2,000, 3,000 people willing to put in a small amount? Are they just looking for that next buck? Well, the problem is a lot of the $200, $300 investors are what's continuing these projects and giving credence to the ability for these projects to succeed. Because, if you lose $200, you might not be that mad, right? And it gives, you got a bunch of people with $200 that they lose. They might say something, but they're more worried about the project they invested 1,800 or 2,500 in, right? And so I really think the good projects, they do need to have some minimal investors now. I mean, this is something I've said out loud and proposed. Obviously, this is the blockchain, and you're not supposed to be regulated in so many different ways. But there's a reason why rules exist. And although we might think of some of these rules as they've been embellished or over abused or whatever they might be, they all started because of human nature tends to be a little bit greedy or evil in some ways, and some bad players, not everybody, obviously. Now, how do we change this? Like, what is the way? Obviously you're doing your part. You wrote a book, you're coming on, you're talking about it, but how do we actually touch the hearts and the minds of these people that are allowing this to happen, enabling you?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Thank you. Now I can just really dig in. In the book, I talk about an idea that I really think is fundamental, and it's called a distributed ICO. And the idea is that for projects, to solve this problem, we have to align the interests of the founders of the projects with the investors that are funding them. And no sensible person would think that a project in its infancy needs $20 million up front, or $50 million up front, or $15 million up front.
Sure.
You're killing the project. I've personally witnessed projects die because of that, because the founders aren't Warren Buffett. They don't know how to allocate 15, 20, $30 million and make it sure it's safe and it grows and it's under, it's well maintained. They don't know any of that. You're just giving them more problems. And a distributed ICO, what it does is it breaks down the process in installments. So every quarter, the project is raising money. It's based on their objectives for that quarter. And every quarter, the investors, through the smart contract, vote on only one question. And that question is, should the project continue? Mm. And as long as there's a majority that says yes, then they get the money for the next quarter and they continue growing and they continue raising funds. This structure in a smart contract allows for two things. First of all, it demands that projects have a plan and they have clear milestones and they communicate well what their goals are for this quarter. And it completely eliminates the incentive for scammers.
Sure.
Because scammers, they're not interested in working hard to raise a bunch of money and to build something. They're interested in getting a bunch of money and running for the hills. So a distributed ICO is a way that it's a methodology, it's a planning, and it requires a business plan, it requires a fundraising plan, it requires a smart contract that's designed to actually put this in place, but it aligns the interests of founders and investors. And it also makes life easier for the projects. Why does a project need to cultivate 15,000 investors to convince them? I mean, I've done this. I know how hard it is. You have to build a huge community. You have to create lots and lots of momentum in the market. You have to spend a lot of money to do that.
Sure.
And whereas you should be focusing on what you need to build your project. I mean, if you're going to need $5 million, you're probably going to need it a year from now, 2 years from now. You're not going to need it next month. So let's use the technology to build the fundraising methodology that our industry needs. And you'll see that will drive solid projects, raising money, and actually delivering on their promises.
Yeah, you just nailed it. But there's obviously questions that come along with that. How do you get everybody on board? Like, what is it? What platform exists to allow this to happen? So, I mean, surely you've got some response to this, but as well as just getting the opportunity to make to ensure like, hey, I'm an investor. If you want me to invest into you, then you need to be doing it through this distributed ICO, right?
Mhm.
That sounds great, but the actual what's the process? What do you advise people to start thinking, and how should they start expecting people to operate that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's we outline the process in the book and go into a bit of the details. It's perfectly doable in the Ethereum blockchain using using an Ethereum smart contract.
Exactly. Yep.
It doesn't. You don't need, by doing it this way, you don't need, a project maybe only needs a few hundred investors to get off the ground. So it makes the process of marketing and growing the community, it makes it less likely to be scammy, to be sleazy, because you don't need 150,000 people following, in your Telegram group. You just need to have enough people that believe in the mission and the purpose, and
Absolutely.
that you're capable of doing it. And when you do that, and the way it's structured, it's as simple as sending some Ethereum to the smart contract and getting your tokens back.
Hey man, I'm a fan. Like, and of course, I'll be a little objective, and I will, push back a little bit. But everything you're saying makes sense, Dennis, and I'm really impressed with the way that you explain this. And of course, I have not got a chance to read your book yet, and I'm very intrigued, and I for sure at some point will, especially if you send me one. But that's another conversation. But I'm very excited about getting my hands on that book and getting and diving into it, and then maybe we'll have a follow up as well, because I would like to have a deeper conversation once I understand a little bit more from your perspective. Now, moving forward, you made mention of how the younger CEOs, and that Mark Zuckerberg, myth, and even with this distributed ICO. I mean, these are wonderful ideas, and these are things that I can get behind, especially because I am here for the community. I also personally see, I mean, I will. If this actually became something, or if this platform existed to ensure that this is what was happening, or this style of investing was happening, it would quickly catch on. Like, investors be like, why don't you do a distributed ICO? And it can socially, catch fire, and the expectations for all these projects will boom immediately happen. Now, saying that and then actually coming into fruition, I mean, it can be as minuscule as a millimeter's worth of difference, between it catching on and not. And so picking the right project to do it and having these things. Do you have projects that are actually buying into this idea right now? Do you know anybody who's come to be like, hey, I'm going to be the first one?
We're talking to a couple of projects. Yeah, we haven't closed anything down yet, but yeah, there's a little bit there's some work going on in the back office, and we'll hopefully be announcing the first distributed ICO
Wonderful,
before too
wonderful.
long.
No, I'm really proud to hear that. All right, so and as we wind down, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're a busy man. You're sitting there in Spain with your lovely family, and I would hate to take away from your evening anymore. But I'm very grateful that you were able to come on and explain some things. What have I missed? Is there anything that I may have missed the point on, and not been able to capture the way that you wanted to be asked, or that you wanted to maybe mention something else?
I think we've covered it all. I think it's been a pretty good conversation. The only thing I would say, anybody interested in reading the first four chapters of the book for free, they can go to cryptopreneurs.club. That's cryptopreneurs.club, and that will just leave their email. They'll get the first four chapters. Anybody who wants just to jump in and grab the book, it's on Amazon, like I said. And yeah, thanks for.
Are you on Twitter? Or are you where can people find you at personally?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Dennis H. Lewis. LinkedIn, Dennis H. Lewis. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
For sure, man. Well, again, we're grateful. Now, at the end of each episode, I do this quick fire where I'm going to ask you a bunch of random questions that, although they may be related in some capacity or the next to crypto, they may not be either, right? So 4 or 5 different questions, and feel free to pass. I don't want to put you on a spot, or if there's anything in particular that you don't really feel comfortable answering. Obviously, that's not. But I might look at you weird since we're on camera. But no, that's all in good fun. But we'll start with this: favorite movie of all time.
Favorite movie
You
of
can
all
name
time?
two.
It's got to be one of the Star Trek movies.
Oh my gosh, dude, now we're talking. All right, we can set aside a whole episode to talk Star Trek. Which Star Trek? You're probably the original series.
Yeah, the originals. Yeah,
I'm a
come
next
on.
generation guy. It's dude, like I saw it live on TV. My dad would play it. I would be watching. Right? I'm a Jean-Luc Picard guy.
Yeah, Picard's pretty awesome too.
Captain's Log, Stardate. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
it.
it's classics. All right. Well,
Ba-dum.
hey, look, Star Trek. You just said enough. In fact, I have no other questions for you. Right? No. But no, I'm a huge Star Trek guy. Anybody who compares Star Trek, Star Wars, I'm like, the only similarity is they have star in their name. I get this a lot because I talk about Jean-Luc Picard. Actually, very few episodes I don't get to talk about Jean-Luc Picard. So thank you for
It's all the stories,
plug.
man. I mean, come on. When is Star Wars going to have a decent story? They haven't had a decent story since Luke Skywalker, the first one. I mean, the rest are all the same story. How many Death Stars are you going to kill, right?
I feel you. Look, I don't mind Star Wars. I just hate when people compare it, right? So then I get a
Yeah,
little defensive.
exactly. Yeah,
So I
that's
feel
right.
you. I feel you, bro. We're on the same page. All right. So next question. All right. So as Bitcoin goes and the theology behind Bitcoin and what Bitcoin stands for, could you ever see Bitcoin as a political party?
I don't think so. No.
Bitcoin can it ever reach $1 million?
Sure.
Sure. Safe.
Yeah.
That was a safe answer.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So of all the people in crypto,
by the way, I'll be happy that day. Eh? I'll be really happy when it does.
I think many of us will be, and I agree. Yes. As and I ask a lot of people different things, and this one can be a little bit more complicated. So if it's more than one answer or more than one sentence, by all means. But you're the biggest influence you've had in crypto.
The biggest influence.
The biggest?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I've been self-taught in a lot of things, so I'm not, it's just been, I think, all of the people that I've worked with on projects. It's being in the trenches. I'm not big on influencers and all this stuff because
Sure.
I think it's because I've seen a lot of it from the back as well. So I think
maybe.
most of the mentors and the people that I've really respected, they're nobody's going to know who they are.
Oh, and that's okay too, by the way. But yes, I understand what you mean, and I think it gives perspective to inside. When people get to relate to, hey, Vitalik's my inspiration, or my dad, or whatever it might be, right? But what you said absolutely is relevant, and I completely agree with you in so many different things that you've said today, including that, and Star Trek, of course. All right, last question: did you have fun today?
Oh yeah, it's been awesome. You bet. Yeah.
Oh, we look forward to maybe having you on again too, Dennis. And I'm really grateful for your time. I think that Bitcoin Radio is privileged to be able to have wonderful guests on, and you're no different, and you fit right into that.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. I had a great time.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. Once again, we have Dennis Lewis here. He is the author of Behold the Cryptopreneurs. The guy's done a lot of different things. Really wonderful conversation today. I hope you enjoyed it. We got a couple changes coming up over the next couple weeks. Stay tuned. You'll be able to see that. You'll be able to hear that. And you'll be able to participate in that because we might be doing our call-in show finally, everybody. Anyways, if you made it this far, you know what's coming next. That is the cryptoverse belongs to all of us. If you're not taking care of it, who will? It's our responsibilities. Nobody else's. And if you don't do it, who's going to, right? Until next time, Bitcoin Radio, we'll see you soon on WBTC, where Bitcoin lives.